What are you worth? Look how low you've reached. There's no hope for you. That's all the Yetzer Hara speaking. But we know better than that.
The Prism of Torah with Rabbi Asaf Aaron Prisman. Our all-new website, prismoftorah.com, with a full archive, is ready to be browsed. This week, Parshas Pinchas. There's more than meets the eye.
Shalom to everyone. In this week's Parsha of Parshas Pinchas, I actually want to discuss one of the characters that are mentioned in this Parsha, Tzlofchad. I want to say to you a Gemara in Shabbos I learned and the connection to Tzlofchad. Tzlofchad was brought in the Parsha in a totally different context than I'm going to talk about, which is the context of Dinei Yerusha, that his daughters came up to Moshe Rabbeinu and asked him, we want also a part of the land, and just because we don't have any brothers, it's not fair that we lose out. And Moshe Rabbeinu indeed went to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he said that they do deserve to get their portion of their father. But I want to say something very interesting. I saw B'Shem the Arizal and others. It has to do with the Gemara in Shabbos. The Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Kuf Nun Amud Beis, says a very interesting story about a chassid. This chassid was walking on Shabbos and thinking to himself, as he saw an opening in his fence to his garden, to his field, and he said, oh, I gotta fix this. And then he was upset at himself. He was upset at himself because he said to himself, why did I think about this on Shabbos? It's not related to Shabbos. A person shouldn't fix his fence in Shabbos. I shouldn't even have thought about this. So of course the question begs itself, what do you mean? We all say in the Mizmo on Shabbos, on the Shabbos table, which means that machshavos, just thoughts, are okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's talking and speaking out things and doing actions that's not matim on Shabbos. So why was he so upset? We'll continue the story. As a result of him being upset, he decided, even though after Shabbos I can fix the hole in the fence, the gap in the fence, I decided to be koines myself, and as a result I am not fixing this ever again. That's what he decided. Later on, HaKadosh Baruch Hu performed a miracle for him, and the type of tree called the tzlaf. The tzlaf is a unique tree that has three types of fruits associated with that comes from it, and it also possesses a characteristic that it's very pointy, and hence it acts as an amazing continuation of the fence, so animals can't go through there. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu made another miracle, that there were so many fruits that came out of that tree or bush that it took care of all his parnasa as well as his children's parnasa. There are actually two ways of understanding this Gemara. One is the Taz, that the Taz says that this chassid actually forgot it was Shabbos, and he was planning on fixing it today on Shabbos, and then he realized, oh, I forgot it's Shabbos today. And that's why he was koines himself, because he held like a certain opinion that we don't go according to this opinion la halacha, but when you did an Isser on Shabbos, then you can't enjoy that thing forever. And even though he didn't do anything, but he wanted to be koines himself and take upon himself not to ever fix the gap. But the other most common mahalach is, like I explained, that he really thought to himself, he knew it was Shabbos, but he accidentally thought of that, and then he got upset at himself. And the question is, why did he get upset at himself? He didn't do anything wrong. And why did he take it upon himself that now he's not going to fix it forever? To answer this question, there's an Arizal, the Ari in Shara Gilgulim, as well as a Ben Yoyada and the Chasam Sofer on this Gemara, Daf Kuf Nun Amud Beis. They all say a similar idea, probably all came from the Arizal, which is that you should know, the famous Mekoishish, the person that in front of all the Jewish people was Mechalel Shabbos. There's a machlokes in the Gemara who this person was. Rabbi Akiva, this is the Gemara in Shabbos. Rabbi Akiva says that it was Tzlofchad. So he now came back in a reincarnation, in a Gilgul, says the Arizal, in the neshama of this chassid. And who is this chassid? So that they all say, as the Gemara in Bava Kama teaches us, when every time it says in the Gemara chassid, it can be one of two people, either Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava or Rabbi Yehuda ben Eloi. So says the Arizal, this was Rabbi Yehuda bar Ilai, and he was a Gilgul of this. So the chassid was Rabbi Yehuda bar Ilai, who was a Gilgul of Tzlofchad. And as a result, he wanted to rectify the big sin he performed. What's the big sin he performed? That he was Mechal Shabbos. That's a horrible thing. Chayav Skila. So he wanted to rectify that and atone for it, and therefore he took upon himself to go to the other extreme, and even though really he didn't do anything wrong, and it was just a machshava, just a thought, and hilurim mutarim, but he said, I want to take it upon myself, I'm going to the other extreme, and I don't want to get any good thing out of this thought, and therefore I am not planning on fixing this fence. As a result, HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw how much he wants to atone for his sin, so he kind of blinked at him and said to him, you know what? You deserve that I'll take care of you. It's an amazing thing you did. You atoned for your sin. Not only that, says the Arizal, that even hafach liot zchuyos, you know that when you do tshuva me'ava, then the zdoinos hofchim liot zchuyos, and as opposed to the sins, now it transformed itself from sins to merits, and now he got this amazing bush with fruits that took care of him and his family for their whole lives. Both the Arizal and the Ben Yehoyada and the Chasam Sofer end off with this amazing idea that it's hinted in the story that indeed this was a reincarnation of Tzlofchad. How do we see that? Because what's the name of this bush? It's tzlaf. That's what it's called, tzlaf. And it's tzlaf together with the word echad. It's Tzlofchad, and that's what happened. The tzlaf is the thing that grew out of here. Another mahalach I saw, that what was unique about a tzlaf. Why dafka tzlaf? Why did Hashem decide a tzlaf should grow there? Because we know that Shabbos is me'ein oilam haba. That's also a zmira in Shabbos that we sing. Me'ein oilam haba. Me'ein oilam haba. Shabbos menuche. And he said, what's going to be in oilam haba? The Gemara in Shabbos says that the main olam haba comes from the Gemara in Brachos, Daf Nun Zayin Amud Beis. That Shabbos is main olam haba. And there's another Gemara in Masechet Shabbos, Daf Lamed Gimel. Then the future, the trees are going to give fruits every day. So one Talmud asks his Rebbe, really? How do you see that in this world? Do you see this in this world at all? And he says, yeah, you do. There's a tree called, guess what? The tzlaf. And it gives fruits every day. Why? Because it had so many different types of fruits. Every season it had fruits, because it had fruits from its branches and fruits from the real fruit, etc., etc. So also here, it's me'ein oilam haba. That was the idea because it was related to Shabbos. So first of all, we've answered the question that we raised. Why did the chassid feel bad about what he did? According to most mefarshim of this story, he didn't really do anything wrong. He was just having machshavos. And we answered that yes, because this neshama was a gilgul, a reincarnation based on the Arizal, that came, the Ben Yehuda was the Rabbi Yehuda ben Ilai was a gilgul of Tzlofchad, and he wanted to rectify the major isser he performed in public on Shabbos. So he wanted to go to the other extreme, and even something that was permitted, but because they had a tinge of something not appropriate connected to Shabbos, even though halachically it's fine, it's permissible, therefore he decided, I want to go the other extreme. So we answered the question. We saw a very, very unique idea, how you see from this story that this was really a reincarnation of Tzlofchad. And Arizal says many of the neshamas today have a nitznutz, a certain percentage of the neshama is a gilgul from different neshama, and therefore we're here for a reason. As we always say, we're here to be metakin, all kinds of things. Everyone has a different role in this world, and that's why we can't compare ourselves to anyone else. We each got different kelim to do our tafkid here, and we have to realize that. And therefore, when an Nisayon comes to us, we have to step up to the plate and go ahead and show HaKadosh Baruch Hu how much we realize that this world is just a stepping stone to the world to come. Practically speaking, I would just like to take out from this whole idea two yesoidos. Yesoid number one is based on the Rambam. The Rambam, there's a famous Rambam in the Hilchos Deis Perik Aleph Halacha Daled that he explains that you should know everyone should be in the middle path. You should be balanced with your midos. He over there goes to define what balanced means, but you should always be balanced. You shouldn't be too extreme anyway. You should try to work on yourself to be balanced. However, says the Rambam later on in the next Perik, in Perik Beis Halacha Gimel, he says that if you find yourselves that you failed and you went too extreme to one way, then you could go to rectify yourself. You should go extreme the other way until you feel like you conquered that midah, whatever it is, and then you should go back to the middle. For example, if a person's angry too much, it's not good. He has to go to the other extreme, and once he masters the other extreme, then he can go back to the middle path. What does this have to do with us? Also here, this Tzlofchad that came back in the neshama of Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai, he wanted to rectify himself. So he says, he did something not good related to Shabbos. He wanted to go to the other extreme. Once he rectified that, it atoned for his sin. Also, he can go back to being balanced. But aside from that, we see also this idea, it's never too late. A person should never let the Yetzer Hara trick him, as the Yetzer Hara tries to do. What are you worth? Look how low you've reached. There's no hope for you. That's all the Yetzer Hara speaking. But we know better than that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu always craves for us to come back. Shuvu lai banim shoivevim. We know there's a baskol every day that wants all of us to come back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we always have that lifesaver to get back to Hashem, and that's the beautiful thing about tshuva, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave this amazing opportunity, total 100% chesed, to always have the ability to come back to Hashem. So a person should never feel and let the Yetzer Hara put him down. You're not worth anything. There's no point in doing tshuva. There's always point to do tshuva. I would like to end with the story that I found in Yalkut Lekach Tov. They had a separate sefer on, I think, Emuno Bitachon. And I want to share with you this story. It's a long story, so I'll try to make it short. But it shows this idea that you never know why you're going through things, and you should totally blindly trust HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And even when times look really bad, which we all go through those times, but there's always a reason. We may not always know it, but at some point we will understand. We'll look back and we'll see, we understand what's happening. This story is brought down and is documented by Reb Chaim Vital, the Talmid Muvak of the Arizal, and I'll try to make it really short. But there was a family with a couple of kids. The mother lost her husband at a young age. 2 years after that, all the kids come home to visit her, and there's a kid called Yosi. He's still living in the house in his early 20s, and the other married sons or daughters come for Shabbos, and the mother is very upset. She's crying. The kid said to her, "Why are you upset? The Shulchan Aruch tells us there's how much tzar a person should have, and you can't cry about our father that passed away 2 years after it happened. You got to work on yourself. I'm sorry for speaking like this to my own mother. I apologize." And the mother said, you're right. But what can I do? I can't control myself. They go into Shabbos. They had nice Mirus Shabbos, and then she goes to sleep. And as she's going to sleep, she remembers that someone offered for her a shidduch to get remarried. And she's disgusted by the thought. She can't even think about it. As she falls asleep, again, this is not me. This is all Reb Chaim Vital's story, and I'm really cutting it short. She falls asleep, and there she finds herself in a place, and you can imagine how much descriptions the Reb Chaim Vital goes into, but in Gan Eden. And the Eliyahu Navi, or someone that looks like Eliyahu Navi, meets her at a tree, and he says, "Do you want to see your husband?" And she says, "Yes." And she's waiting. She sees this young person giving a shir to many people. And he says to her, Eliyahu Navi says to her, "Okay, wait a couple of minutes until the shir finishes, and then I'll get him to come over to you." And indeed, the shir finishes. He comes over to her and he speaks to her, and she's about to faint, but he gives her a special branch from Gan Eden that has a certain smell, and woken her up and brought her neshama back to life. And she says, "Why did you leave me so early?" And he says to her, "Let me tell you the truth. What happened was, I was a huge Talmid Chacham in my previous life. But in that life, I didn't want to get married. I just wanted to learn Torah all day. I saw how amazing it is and how important it is. And because I didn't get married and I didn't help out my kids, I wasn't married, then I wasn't able to reach high levels over here in Gan Eden. And this is the real world. I want to tell you, look around you. This is the real world. Where you are is just a means. It's not an end. It's not the real world. It's all fake. It's an optical illusion. That's me adding to the story, of course. It's an optical illusion for you to be able to do your tafkid. Use the kelim Hashem gave you to do your tafkid. And so I had to be sent back down in a new lifetime. And that is why Hashem took me early, because I just needed to marry you and to have kids, to bring them up, and then I could go back. And you should know you're very lucky, because now you're connected to me, and I look how many people I teach Torah up here, and you're a part of this. Every wife is a part of what her husband accomplished. And yes, I also didn't know I was able to teach, because she asked him, how are you able to teach? I didn't know you're a Talmid Chacham. He says, I also didn't know I was a big Talmid Chacham. I had to go down, and my tafkid this time was just to bring up a family. And I had to work. And that's it. I barely learned, I know. But as I got up here, Hashem gave me all the knowledge that I had in the past, and all the Torah suddenly came back into me, and I'm able to teach now. And then she said, so let me ask you one more thing. How come HaKadosh Baruch Hu did that? Our son was taken away by a goy that was drunk, and he just killed him. How come? Why did that happen? At 3 years old. So he said, that's also a story. Come this way. And he took her to a very special place that later in the story they explain no one's allowed to go to that place. It's such a high place in Gan Eden that only the father and the mother can come and visit him there. And it's an amazing, I'm not going to go into the descriptions because there is no end to it. If someone wants, I can refer you to where the story is brought down. But everything was amazing, and the smell was amazing, and the birds were amazing, and all the birds were saying, Mizmor HaKadosh Baruch Hu, unbelievable. And he says, here's your son. Once again, she fainted. He gets her back up to life with the branch. And then he says, listen, this kid, all the village was killed by Goyim. He was saved by a Goya, and she took care of him, and she fed him. And because she breastfed him, then as a result, after his whole lifetime, his previous lifetime, he came up to this world, he was not able to reach higher than a certain level. And therefore, he really craved to reach a higher level, so he was sent down just for those 3 years, to make up for those 3 years that he was breastfed by a Goya. And that's why he was sent to you, which is a big schus. He was sent to you to be able to, that you could feed him, and then he was able to come back up. And then she kept asking, so why by a Goy? Why such a bad death? And he said, that's because he was an atonement for the whole city. There was a decree that the whole city was supposed to go, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu took him away instead in a weird way, so that it'll be an atonement, as tzaddikim do, for the whole city. There's more to the story, but we'll end here. And the Yesod we're learning over here today, maybe it's not as coupled as usually we try to do with the Parsha, but it's a very important idea that we should live with throughout our whole life in this world. In the next world, I don't even have to tell you that, because that's going to be evident and obvious. But we should live this whole world realizing that no matter how bad things seem to be, first of all, we can always do tshuva. And more importantly, we should go into every challenge we have in life, which is one of the big reasons what life is all about, for us to have challenges and nisyonos. And we should realize there's a reason and there's a meaning to what we're doing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give all of us koyach to be oimed in nisyonos and give nachas ruach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Have a good Shabbos.
The Prism of Torah podcast. Visit our website www.prismoftorah.com. Email us admin@prismoftorah.com. Podcast produced by Eddie Podcast Productions. Lilunishmas Yitzchok Isaac Ben Ramosha. Thank you, Yonovev, for your recording equipment. Once again, prismoftorah.com, where our huge archive is available and ready to be searched.